Welcome to the Journey Up podcast. I'm your host, Tyrus Duncan. The Journey Up podcast is a storytelling podcast where we dive deep into personal journeys through life's darkest hours and the resilience it takes to rise again. Each episode features a guest who shares a raw, unfiltered account of one of the lowest points in their life and the trials and tribulations they faced. Listeners will hear about the challenges, breakthroughs, and the strength it took to overcome adversity. And today I have a very special guest. I think you guys will enjoy this a lot. I have Marquice Gee.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Marquice. How are you?
I am so good. I feel so honored to be sitting with the Tyrus Duncan.
I'm glad that I'm sitting with the Marquice Gee. Tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Oh, man. Well, I am.
She said, "Oh man," because she is a woman of many different trades and talents and different things. You do a lot.
I do a lot. I am first and foremost just a girl. No, just kidding. I am a God-fearing woman. I am a loving, nurturing, kind person. I am a event coordinator by trade and passion. That is a passion of mine. But more than anything, I'm just a person that wants to spread light and love and encourage other people to just be their best selves and live authentically and genuinely as who they are.
What makes you want to do that?
Because I feel like that's just what my life has been. I feel like growing up, like you said, I'm a very multifaceted person. I've done a plethora of things. I was a Girl Scout. I played the flute. I'm bilingual. I've traveled the world. And I feel like majority of people, now it's a little bit different, but I feel like growing up, that wasn't the norm for people that look like us. And that's not necessarily something I think I was consciously aware of, because growing up, like, my parents never told me no, honestly. I mean, they told me no, but
She's like, they never told me no.
Yeah, but like in terms of things that I wanted to do or try, they never really told me no. They always encouraged me and my sister to just try a bunch of different things, do a bunch of different stuff, and helped us to be as well-rounded as we possibly could be. And so because of that, I just like the sky was literally the limit for me. And I never really did anything to be like, oh, this would impress somebody or whatever the case may be. It was just like, oh, this sounds fun. I'm bored. Like, let's try it, literally. And I think once I got to college, I started to pick up on how that was like a trend for my life. Like, I would just fall into some stuff. But once I got out of college, and particularly during COVID, reconnecting with people, when people would come and tell me like, oh, I remember, like, I was a class president in my high school, and people still talk about that to this day. And I did and did not realize like kind of how big of a deal that was. Or how much of an impact I made during that time. Because again, it was just like, I look at everything like a job. Like, school was a job. Any activity I did was a job. My job was a job. Like, everything is a job. Like, what's the objective? What's the goal? How can I get it done the most efficiently and get out of here, And so when people would come back and like say like, oh, I remember when you did this, and like, I remember when you did that, and certain things, I was like, oh shoot, I forgot I did do that, And it kind of just clicked in my head one day of, but you can do this too. You know what I'm saying? Like, because people would literally say like, oh, I wish I could have done that. And in my head, I'm like, but you could have, know?
Right.
And I didn't want people to think that, I was just some extraordinary person, or like I don't come from money, or, anything like that. Like, anything that I've done in life, I've worked extremely hard for it or to do it, whatever the case may be. And it's just like, I wanted people to know that you can have these same experiences as well. But I started to realize it was like a deeper thing of just like, one, just the household environment I did grow up in plays a difference. The environment that I was in, the encouragement that I had, the mindset that I had. And again, all these things weren't something I was conscious of as I was doing them. But then once I became conscious of it, that's where I was just like, okay, now I need to make this my mission in life to like show people what is possible. And then that's what made the transition into like my social media becoming more transparent, Gee's Gems, and all these other different things. Even now, like how I don't really post a lot, but like on my stories, when I'm posting and sharing things, like, yes, I'm posting because it's what I'm doing and it's fun, but I try to like educate people through the things that I'm doing as well. So it's never anything really to like brag or, oh, look at me, look what I'm doing. It's just like, look what I'm doing, but look what's also possible for you to do as well.
It's always an interesting moment when you realize that other people don't see the world the same way you do.
Oh, for sure. And I did not know that. Honestly, I really didn't. I had such a like tunnel vision view of life, you know what I'm saying? Because I honestly, in my household, we never really talked about world issues, you know what I'm saying? Like, of course, I knew very much that I was black, and I knew there was a difference between black, white, Latino, everything. But like growing up in school, like I grew up in PWIs, but I remember being in school and one of like my closest friends was Latina. I remember when Burmese students were introduced to our school. I remember being in Girl Scouts amongst a bunch of white girls. You know what I'm saying? So like I've always had a collective of people around me, you know what I'm saying? And it was never a, oh, you're this, I'm that. You know, it was just like, oh, we're here doing this thing together. We're cool, we're friends, you know what I'm saying? So I never, until I got to college, literally, college was a culture shock for me, honestly. I would say it was 2 culture shocks. It was in 6th grade, I went to IPS for a year, and
Terrifying, wasn't it?
oh my gosh, literally. Honestly, I will say that was probably the best school experience I had. It like initially going into it, it was terrifying, but I ended up having the best time ever because like everybody was just them, you know, everybody was just authentically who they were. And of course I was very much an outlier, you know what I'm saying?
Where were you coming from?
I was coming from Washington Township. So I was a Washington Township kid from like 2nd grade until I graduated, minus that 1 year. And yeah, it was I could tell like everyone was coming from very different lives than what I had. And I'm not a judgmental person, but I know the tendency to judge me. And that's what made me scared. I didn't want people to misjudge me and think that like, oh, she thinks she's better than us.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, like I want to be friends with everybody, like, you know? But that's what it ended up being. Like once people kind of could see me and like warm up to my personality, that was the first time I went to like a house party. Like it was just, I didn't know like people, I was very much a homebody. So like I didn't go outside and play and stuff like that. That was the first time I was really just like outside, just playing around, living life. That's when I started playing the flute. It introduced me to like music in that way. So I would say like it was a very different year, but I would say it was a much better year than I anticipated it being. And then when I got to college, like I was in the honors college. So like I went to Ball State. So at Ball State, the honors college is like a completely different dorm. And when I started there, I want to say there were maybe only like 4 to 6 of us that were black in the honors college at the time. So like my roommate was white, my neighbors were white. Like I didn't go nowhere. I didn't do anything. And then once I started seeing like all the like BSA, the Black Student Association, like all these different like minority organizations, I was like, oh, like blackness became different to me when I went to college. And I'm grateful for that. And I don't want to make it seem like I know that I'm black. Like I have black parents. I went to a black church. Like I know it's just very different when you're like completely removed from your bubble. And you experience so much more of the world, and it's in your face every single day. Like being in elementary school, middle school, high school, you go to school and then you come home. But when you go to college, you go to school, you go home in the same place, you know? So it becomes your reality just becomes very different. And it took a while for me to kind of like adjust to that, you know what I'm saying? So
that's what's up. That's some great history on Marquice Gee.
I know. I know.
So I have this tradition on the show that I do.
Okay, tradition.
We're not really strangers. Have you heard of that game?
Yes.
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 As people can see, we're not really strangers
already.
already.
We're not strangers at all.
But I like to pull a card from here and ask my guests a question.
Okay.
One day they'll sponsor me, hopefully.
Oh, hopefully. We're going to pray
Hopefully.
for it. Let me know.
We're not really. We're going to send some emails. And I'm going to be looking for that sponsorship. I like this one, actually. How can you become a better person?
How can I become a better person? I think, honestly, what this year has shown me about becoming a better person is slowing down. We always talk about intention and things like that, but the words we use can have different meanings at different times. And I've always been intentional in my actions as it applies to my work. I can honestly say maybe I haven't been as intentional about my relationships that I have with people, in terms of checking in on people, meeting their needs, and things of that nature. Not in a completely selfish way, but because just my future and my career is like very, very important to me. And so I can become very hyper focused on that and doing, and I'm always moving on the go. And I think a lot of people will adapt to my lifestyle instead of me learning how to adapt to other people's lifestyle as well. And it's something that I've noticed a lot with my two best friends. We've known each other since high school, so over 10 years. And our friendship in this past year has been very transformative. And taking, like, the conversations we have now as adult friends is obviously very different from when we were in high school, but it's been teaching me how to be more present, how to listen more, how to think critically about other people. Like, I think critically about other people, but in a mass context, not in a more nuclear way. So I really think that is how I can become a better person, in just like slowing down and being more intentional with the people around me.
I think that's something that we all could take from for sure. Yeah. To just be intentional.
And it's a lot because, just by the nature of, like, even just what we do, we're around a lot of people all the time. Yeah. So it's hard to be super intentional with everybody. Yeah. But being mindful of, okay, who are the people, like, it's just giving yourself like a ranking list a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, these people, I need to make sure, I'm checking in a little bit more frequently than these people down here. That doesn't mean these people aren't as important. Right, yeah. But that's just the nature of relationships.
It's good to make the distinction.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't make the distinction, to your point, we may be giving attention to the wrong people instead of giving attention to the people who actually need it. Yeah. And being around a lot of people is very exhausting. And when you're exhausted, you don't make the best decisions.
Absolutely.
So to even just take some time to separate the people and say, okay, these people are actually good and they feed my energy and they need me and I need them. Yeah. And these people, I can see them sometimes. Yeah. They can get some of me, but they can't get all of me.
Absolutely.
Because I'm important and I'm of value.
Yeah, you really have to pay attention to who is pouring into you and how. Because there could be some people who are trying to pour into you, but it's not from a pure place, right? Pure and genuine place. And the people that are pouring into you from a positive space constantly, and I mean just random, like out of nowhere, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are, because something I realized this year was, I'm a lover person. Like, I genuinely do love everybody. Even if you can't necessarily see it or feel it, like when I'm at home, I'm thinking about everybody all the time. You know what I'm saying? And I genuinely want the best for other people. But because of that, I don't expect to receive that in the same way. You know what I'm saying? And this year, actually just this past month, in November for my birthday, it's just like, I know who I invited and I know who I said was coming, but I swear every person that came in the door, it was like, when they say when you order from Amazon or just order stuff and you be like, oh, I forgot what I ordered. And you get excited. That's literally how it felt. Like, everybody that walked in the door, I was like, oh my gosh, you can't, oh my God. Like, I was just so excited. And people were just like, yeah, like I said I was coming, like, and it didn't hit me until the next day. And it really was my mom saying, she was like, you're just not used to people showing up for you. And I was like, ooh, yikes, that stung a little bit. But it's true, I'm not saying that people don't show up for me, but people don't tend to show up in the same way. And that shouldn't be expected. Everybody has their different way of, communicating or doing whatever that looks like. But in that moment, because like if I don't do nothing else, I'm gonna be present. You know, I'm gonna be present. Anybody, they have an event, a party, or anything, I'm at least going to show up.
That does so much more than we think.
Exactly.
Just being there.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I always say not to neglect the amount of value that you bring to the spaces that you enter.
Yes.
And we often neglect the value that we bring in the spaces that we're a part of.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, not to neglect the absence that your whole leaves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, somebody invites you to go somewhere, and you're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal if I don't come. Maybe it is.
Yes.
And maybe it does play a huge part on how people, one, look at you, and two, how you look at yourself. Because it's like, why don't you think that you're that valuable?
Exactly.
To the point that you can enter a space and everything changes.
Yes.
Because it does.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
People don't know, like, people don't truly understand, like, the energy that they carry and how it can shift rooms. Now, some people might have some negative energy. They could shift rooms.
And most of them, they not aware about that either.
Yeah, they're not aware of that either. But the people that have the positive energy that can shift the room, like some people can just walk into a room and shift the space and never have to speak a word. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like those memes that say like, you know, I need a friend who like we don't have to talk all the time, but like we just sit in the room and be like. I love people like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because especially when I'm like at home, like in my comforts and
You
stuff
don't want to
like
say
that.
anything to nobody,
Yes,
but you still don't want to be alone.
Exactly. I don't want to talk. I don't want to think. But the comfort and that energy of that person is comforting to me. You know what I'm saying? It's very, very comforting. So like I love when people, and also being an event coordinator, I'm like, showing up is very important.
Very important.
It's extremely like, please show up. Please show up. But also too, because you just never, and like even myself, because there's been times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so exhausted. Like I do not have the energy to go and be in this place and space. But then I end up forcing myself to go, and it ends up being the best time. Or I connected with somebody amazing, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And I think a lot of times people, and I'm not saying burn yourself down to the ground. Like, yes, you can't be everywhere all the time. But I think people just miss out on so many things because they don't want to show up.
Yeah.
Literally. I'm like, my life is a result of just showing up. When I want to, when I don't want to. It's just showing up.
A lot changes when you're there.
Yes.
When you're present.
Yeah.
I think that's something, that's how I could become a better person for sure. Is by being present.
Yeah.
And being confident in my own abilities and the things that I have to offer the world.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I do forget. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if I do this or if I don't do this. And then someone will remind me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, remember when you did this?
Yeah.
Or one time you said this and this really stuck with me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, man, people actually be listening to me.
Yes, Tyrus. Everybody listens to you. Like, what? You are one of the most profound people I have ever met in my life. And I tell you all the time, like, when we see each other at events, like you are one of those people that you, like, I can see you and you don't have to say nothing. But I automatically feel so much better when I see you. Like, I could be there and, you know, on my, you know, shaking hands, kissing babies and stuff. And then I turn and look over and I see Tyrus, and I'm just like, oh my God, it's Tyrus. You know what I'm saying? Like, my heart just feels warm because you just have such a pure energy that like can make people feel safe, that can make people feel seen, heard, and they know that like, okay, if I did need something, Tyrus gonna have a gem to drop on me. You know what I'm saying? So you are one of those people that are extremely valuable in a space, and because you're already so mild mannered, it's kind of like what are those people, like a sharpshooter? You know what I'm saying? Like nobody may know that you're there, but you gonna feel it. You know, you're gonna feel it. Absolutely.
Thank you. I receive all of that.
You're welcome.
That's partially why I started the brand Everybody Somebody, because I think we all get in these moments to where we forget the value that we offer the world.
Yeah.
And for the mission statement of that brand to be, no matter what you do, who you are, your life has value. And for me to be able to spread that when the moments that I don't feel as if I have value, that's something that gives me value. So it's like, you can think that you don't have value, but you do.
Yes.
And you have to do, be, nor say anything special.
Absolutely.
Because the innate value that we already have inside of ourselves is enough.
Yes.
And I think once we realize that, and once we live and start moving like it is enough, it only increases.
Yes.
And it only helps other people see the value that they may not know that they have.
Exactly.
Because we all are very valuable.
Absolutely. And I think that the problem with not seeing our value is that a lot of the times we view our value from an ego perspective. And a lot of people place their value in things and maybe even people or places, you know. But value is a very it's an undefined thing. It's very hard sometimes to define what your value is. So if you are looking at something that specifically defines your value, you really don't understand what your value is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of people look at like, you know, I'm not in these groups, or I don't have this much money, or I don't live in this type of place, or I don't have this type of car, so therefore my value is less than. And I'm just like, no. you know, like that's not like, if people desire to be around you, that in and of itself says that you have value of some sort. And also knowing that your value may shift depending on where you are. So for me, I feel like in the public realm, you know, a lot of the times my value may be seen as in being a leader and guiding and helping other people. But I also serve a lot of people as well, which brings value to them in a different way. You know what I'm saying? When I'm at home with my family, I'm very much, you know, the nurturing, guiding, let's bring everybody together person. That's a different type of value that I bring when I'm at home with my family and my friends. So I think people need to understand that your value cannot lie in something very objective, and that your value may change in different spaces, and it may change over time as well.
That reminds me of a bar Jay-Z said. He said, you know, the price of everything but the value of nothing.
Oh my gosh. I'm not even a huge Jay-Z fan, but when I heard that line, I said, oh.
And you know something hard when they repeat it 2 times.
Oh, yes.
So he had to repeat it.
With your whole chest.
Literally.
Oh, I literally have that song on my phone just for that. I will skip the whole song just to get to that part. Yes.
Because there are a lot of people who know the price of everything, but don't know the value of it.
Nothing. And that's like what gets people into so much trouble, especially, you know, I think for the most part, a lot of people will define value from a financial perspective. Yeah. And I'm just like, there are so many pricey things that literally have no value at all whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, sometimes it's like when they say, and this is just, you know, this is what the internet streets be saying, but how like black people will wear our wealth and white people or other races will not. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like,
they ain't the internet. That's reality. that's real life.
I just didn't want nobody coming for me.
They can come for me all they want to. That's real life.
Yes.
And we need to learn how to displace what we have been taught the value is on. Because the value is not really on the things that we think it is.
Exactly.
Like where the pricey stuff is.
Exactly.
Or the all-inclusive vacations. Literally. But what about your everyday life?
Exactly.
Like, how do you wake up? Do you wake up in peace? Exactly. Or do you wake up in chaos?
Literally. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. But it's so true because it's just like you could be walking right next to a millionaire, but because he got on some beach bum sandals and some raggedy shorts and a shirt with a mustard stain on it, you're like, oh, he can't be. You know, I remember when I was in elementary school, I swear to you, 5th grade, I will never forget this. And this girl asked me if I was rich one day, just randomly out of nowhere. And I was like, what? And she was just like, are you rich? And I was like, no. Why would you say, like, why do you think that? And she was like, well, you come to school and you're always dressed nice and your hair is always done, da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, that implies that I'm rich? Like, but it goes to that saying that it's like, it's not, it's in you, it's not on you. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because the reality was, like, my younger sister has always been bigger than me. So I was wearing hand-me-ups. You know what I'm saying? I'm wearing hand-me-ups, okay? Like, we're against everything off the clearance rack. You know what I'm saying? But my parents just appearance was important. Mm-hmm. You know, like, you're going to look like somebody, even though we can't afford designer this, designer that, you can still look like something. You can still look nice. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Even to this day, I'm just like, people love a Fashion Nova now. You know what I'm saying? People love Fashion Nova. And you could put something together from Fashion Nova. People don't know if it's Fashion Nova or Gucci. If you really know how to put it on. Yeah, because even then, that the value there comes from the person. Exactly.
And you can tell when somebody is valuable within,
Exactly.
and they know how to move in a room full of vultures. Another Jay-Z line. I ain't even no Jay-Z fan like that, but he do be spitting
He
sometimes.
be saying some stuff every now and again. I be like, okay, Jay-Z, you ate that.
Because
Okay.
a lot of people don't know how to move in a room full of vultures.
Yeah.
And they'll make themselves attractive to the vultures, but thinking they know how to move through the room.
Exactly.
And wonder why they begin to eat up.
Really, you making yourself a target. And
Making
you
yourself
wonder
a
why
target.
you getting
Exactly.
robbed. And, oh my gosh, I can't understand why
Exactly.
somebody would break the windows of my Lamborghini. Are you
It's
crazy?
like, I can't. You're in a room full of vultures looking like meat. And you wonder why they trying to eat you.
Exactly. I'm like, I want to look as plain Jane as possible.
Give me that Fashion Nova, please.
Please. Okay. And that's why I'm also so big on like just versatility in our humanness. Like, that's why on my social, when I went to the Be Nimble party wrapped, and I was literally on my Instagram story earlier that day, and like my hair was like this way, that way. I had it on a big t-shirt, and then just a few hours later, hair curled, dress on, face beat. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it's really just about being comfortable with you.
Yeah.
Because sweatpants, hair tied, chilling with no makeup on, that's every day.
Yeah.
That's my uniform. I hate putting clothes on.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I hate it. If I feel like I can't breathe, oh my gosh, please get me home ASAP. Like, I hate it. I actually hate it. But when it comes time to be able to, go out and put my stuff on, I can also do that as well.
Right.
And people just don't know how to
show the value.
be fluid.
How to be fluid.
Just live.
On that note, let me restart the camera.
Absolutely.
So we spoke some good stuff. We had a good little long icebreaker, 28 minutes.
I told you this could be a 3-hour podcast. Okay, 3-hour interview. I can talk.
Let's get into the real though.
Okay.
Take me to the lowest moment that you've ever experienced. Ooh. Let's talk about how you were able to transcend it.
Oh my gosh. How long do we have for real?
Take me on the journey.
Okay. So really the lowest moment of my life has been this year. Honestly, it started last year, but it was hard to see, how and when it started. Honestly, up until like a few months ago, but in April of this year, April 12th, 2024 was the last time I worked my 9-to-5 job. But I say it started last year because I found out last year that I was getting laid off, but they wanted us to stay on and work to train the new people that were coming in. Basically, they were like offshoring our team overseas, but they wanted us to train those people. Crazy work.
Very crazy work.
But the reason I didn't immediately jump into action in terms of like, okay, let me just go find another job because y'all not about to play me like this, was because all of 2023, I was working 2 jobs and running my business. And so in 2023, I was just like, you know what? I want to buy a house. You know what I'm saying? I want to buy a house. I had been living with my parents for like 3 years, which we had no issues, no problems. It was fine. But I just felt like, my life is moving. It's time to, take the next steps. And of course, I was talking before this, I've always kind of been financially savvy or whatever. Shout out to my dad. And it just made more sense that if I can't afford a home, especially in the economy now, I'm going to get a home. I've never lived on my own before, ever. But I was like, it just makes more sense to just get a house. So all of 2023, I started working part-time at a hotel, 3rd shift. I think I started like January 17th of 2023. And I, of course, have my 9-to-5 job, but I was working remote. So, that's how I was able to, finesse that situation. But then I also had my business. In 2023, I would say to date was probably like one of the busiest years my business had. And so I'm literally everywhere doing everything all the time, practically never sleeping. Literally, there would be like 2-3 day gaps where I was not sleeping because I have to, even though my 9-to-5 was remote, I still have to be like alert in a way. So I would literally be asleep in my bed and my laptop next to my head so I could hear. I would do all my work at night at work so I didn't have to work during the day. But then if I got to get up for a meeting or whatever the case may be, So I can't really fully rest. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting a 2-hour nap was sleeping for me. And so I'm doing that during the day, working at night, getting events and stuff prepped, done, ready, managing, da-da-da-da-da. And then also in between time, going and look for houses. And if anybody's ever went house shopping or has a home, you know how long and stressful and tedious of a process that can be. So doing all that, fast forward, but all at the same time, I'm like also on a high, you know what I'm saying? Because one, I'm making money, so I can do pretty much whatever it is that I want to do. My business is flourishing, so I'm having a good time doing that. My friend circle at the time, like we just living life, you know, whatever, having a good time. And then September came, and I remember it was a house I was honestly just about to settle for because I had been house hunting since February. And so I was just so tired of the process. And it was a home. I was just like, you know what? It was like odd shaped. It was just very not me at all. But in my head, again, I'm always thinking like 20,000 steps ahead. Mm-hmm. It was like right there by Long's, not too far from 16 Tech in the Speedway area. So in my head, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great rental when the Indy 5 comes. Like, I'm just thinking of all these other plans besides, like, this is where you have to live, Marquice. Like, you have to be comfortable living here all the time. And so got the inspection work done, all that stuff, getting ready, getting closer to the signing. And there's like a secondary inspection a lot of people don't get. But it's basically to check, like, all the pipes and all these things. Excuse me. And there was basically like $15,000 worth of pipe work that needed to be done, which basically negated like the whole cost of the house. So I was like, absolutely not doing it. And I told my realtor at the time, I was like, okay, let's just take a pause because I'm actually exhausted of this and we'll jump back in a month. So that was maybe like the end of August. So September comes, and I remember it was September 26, 2023. Was the day I should have been closing on that house. But that same day I woke up and we got this random meeting notification on our calendars. And you know, like you can see like who the attendees are. My team was small. It was like 8 of us. And this one was just like, you can't see all the attendees, which means there's about to be a lot of people on this call. And it came from a person I'd never even heard of before. So I was like, this is weird. Get on the call, and it was like maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And I remember feeling like, what just happened? Like, did I just lose my job? Like, because they were using verbiage that was not very direct. You know what I'm saying? They were doing it intentionally because they didn't want people asking a whole bunch of questions on the call. Mm-hmm. So afterwards, my manager calls our team, and I was just looking, and I said, what did that lady just say to us? And I remember, I love black women. This older black lady on my team, she was just like, girl, we about to lose our jobs. And I was like, oh my God, like, what is going on? I was so confused, but they were just like, well, you know, we don't have official end dates. There were different people in the company had different like gaps of time that they were going to be let go. Like there were some people who were let go immediately. My team had more of like an essential function in the company. So they were like, you guys won't be let go till late Q1, early Q2. So in my head, I'm like, okay, I have plenty of time because I'm too exhausted to think about this right now. My birthday comes the month of November. November was a great month for me. It was my golden birthday. I was turning 27 on the 27th. I had quickly pivoted. I was like, well, if I'm losing my job, I really don't know what my future is about to look like. My sister had also just moved back home. So I was like, well, this is perfect. We were already planning on living together. I was like, well, let's just shift and pivot and get an apartment for at least a year. And then I can go back to figuring out this other stuff. And also just in the very real case that I don't find another job, you can at least cover us for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And I have these conversations with her very upfront. And so November comes, my birthday happens, great time. And I was just like, 27 is going to be the year I'm young and turned, blah, blah, blah. And then December comes. And when I say December probably had to be like, obviously this all started way before this, like I said, but December I think was really like the catapult of it all. Like it just, after December came, it was just like one thing after another. And so there was just like, in my friend group, there was like just some tension things happening or whatever. A lot of things I was having to deal with personally. And I was just like over it. Like I was just so over it. I was so burnt out, just so over it. The new year comes and All-Star happened, All-Star happened. And I was super excited about that. I got to host some events, which was really cool. That's a whole nother story within itself. But I was super happy about that, super excited. And then as soon as All-Star was over, it was like God was like, this is your last hoorah before I'm about to shut you down. And literally, I remember going into that week saying like, okay, yeah, when All-Star is over, I'm gonna need a couple of days to like recoup. Because people think I'm an extrovert because of like what I do and how I am, but I'm really an introvert. So I literally, the amount of prep I have to do to get myself ready to like go out into the world, especially for an event like that, oh my gosh, it was so much. And I remember I literally crashed for like a week. Like I could not get out of the bed for like a week. I was just so tired every day. And so after 1 week went by, I was like, dang, I still can't get up. Like I cannot get up. And I felt fine, but I just felt so tired. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I just exerted a little bit more energy than I thought, blah, 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 blah. I was still going through some like personal relationship type things or whatever that was really just like weighing heavy on me. And then I get fired from my part-time job. It was my fault, I ain't gonna hold you. But I was like, I've never been fired before. Right. You know what I'm saying? I've never been. And it was crazy because, and this is how like hindsight being 2020, I could see like God starting to like move in my life and speak to me because I knew I was getting fired. I went to like, it was just something about that day just was like, I think I had been crying all day that day or something. And even when I was driving to work, something in my spirit was just like, you're about to go home. And I was like, what? Because I remember being like, I just do not want to go. And when I got in the car, something was like, you're about to go home. And I walked in the hotel and just the energy felt different. Like normally, by the time third shift comes, they're like, oh my God, yes, like ready to go home, da-da-da-da-da. And my coworker wasn't there yet. And my manager was there. And usually she's just like, oh my gosh, Marquice, da-da. Like she's so excited to see me. And she didn't have that same energy. And I knew, I was just like, yeah, I'm about to get fired. And she was like, can I see you in the back? And I was like, yeah, I'm about to get fired. And she was just like, yeah. She was like, I just have to let you go. She's like, do you want to say anything? And I was like, no. I was like, I'm good. And she started crying. She's like, I'm so sorry. I said, it's okay. Like you're doing your job. It's okay. Because I didn't expect to be there. Should have been gone already. My plan was to only be there for a year because I was trying to pay off my credit card. That's the only debt I have is my credit card debt. And I was just trying to get that paid off so I could get the house. And so left that job. So now I'm down to one job and one business. Okay, cool. So February goes by. March goes by. Now we finally have an end date. And they tell me April 12th. That's it. So I'm like, okay. Okay. Okay, what's going to happen? April 12th comes. Mind you, this is also the time that my dinner for International Women's Day is supposed to be happening. And I was just like, can't do it. Stuff was going on. So I was like, dang, now I have to postpone this. And I really did not want to do that. But my mom was just like, there's literally nothing you can do about this situation. You're also not in a place to be able to give your best. So you need to do this. So postpone it. April 12th comes. That's my last day of work. And a part of me was just like, oh, thank God. Because I felt like I could just breathe. I didn't hate my job, but I've been having a business for 4 years at this point, doing a lot of things at the same time. And it was just like, also wasn't supposed to be there that long either. And so ended up, I knew we were getting a severance package, but I thought it was just going to be like a couple $100s or something like that, something real cheap. A couple weeks later, I get a check at my mom's house. And that severance was severance, okay? I was like, ooh, okay, all right. Y'all sent us off real nice. And so that allowed me to feel like I could breathe a little bit because I didn't feel like, oh, my gosh, I got to hurry up, go find another job, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, I'm going to just take a month off. My dinner was at the end of April, a couple weeks after my last day of work. Once I got through that, I was like, okay, month of May, I'm just going to chill. I can breathe, pay my rent up. I was cool. So June comes, and now I'm just like, okay, let me start looking for jobs again. You know what I'm saying? I've been working since I was 13 years old. I've never not had a job. So I'm thinking like, you know, I think the longest stretch I ever went without a job was when I came back from DR in 2020, but also the pandemic was happening low key underneath. I went 6 weeks without a job, and that was it. So now it's June, then it's July, then it's August, then it's September, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute, what's going on? This is a little strange. And I ended up having to file for unemployment, which I had filed for unemployment during the pandemic. I think a lot of people did, but it's a difference between like a government shutdown and just ain't nobody checking for me. That's a totally different thing. So that's when I go back to like the ego thing. Like I really had to humble myself. Because I told my mom, I said, yeah, I'm not going to apply. Like, just in a few more weeks, I'll have a job. Like, it's fine. I'm not going to worry about it, blah, 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 blah. And I remember, I don't know what happened, but something was just like, I ain't going to hold you. Someone was like, run up a bag. You know what I'm saying? Like, technically, you are entitled to this money. And I was like, if you get unemployment and you get a job, you know, it'll be a couple of checks. You got double stacked, and that's it. So that's why I ended up filing for unemployment. But I remember like some of the qualifications, like you have to go in person to like these meetings and stuff like that. And I was like, I told my mom, I was like, I think I'd rather die. I think I'd rather die than go and do that. Because I was just so ashamed, you know, I was ashamed, I was embarrassed, but I had to have a very real conversation with myself of like, you got to live, Marquice, like you got to eat, you got to pay your bills. So this is just what you have to do right now. And I was playing these conversations in my head of like going back to elementary school where me and my friends would be like, we're never going to be on like food stamps and stuff like that. And now here I am for the second time in my life having to do these things. And so I get on unemployment, and now at this point I'm full-blown depression, but I'm still having events at the same time. So I didn't realize it till later. I was in a functional depression. Like I would go out into the world, do what I needed to do, and then I would come back home and I would literally just cry and cry and cry and cry. Like to this day, I look at the edge of my bed and I can see myself on the edge of the bed just like crying, can't get myself off the floor, sitting in my shower, crying. Like, because literally if I made it to bathe in a day, like that was a good day for me. You know what I'm saying? And so I was just like, this is my life. Like this is my life. Like I felt completely worthless at that point. Like what is actually, I have a degree. I speak another language. I lived in another country. Like I worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies, like all these different things. And I told my mom, I said, I've done all the things that society says I was supposed to do to not be in this place. And yet here I am. And it dawned in my head going back to September. When I found out I was getting laid off, I heard something say, you're about to go through it. Literally, I heard that. I didn't know what that meant, though. So now I'm at this point, and now I'm like, okay, now I see. So now this is where I'm starting to have, like, my spiritual awakening in a way. So I had started getting back in. I've always been a believer, always grew up, born and raised in church. But, of course, during the pandemic, we couldn't go to church. And then once the doors opened, it just became comfortable to, like, do church at home. But I was getting very much, like, a different fire for it. Like I really wanted to know God for myself. I've been baptized like 6 times, but it's just when you're older, you want to know for yourself. And so I had went on like this church tour. I went to like 5 or 6 different churches around the city of Indianapolis, and I landed at Eastern Star on Cooper Road. And I remember I'm a big music person as well, like I said. And so it was really the choir that got me. But then I started realizing I was understanding the sermons. Like I was really understanding them. This is maybe like July of 2023. So I had already been in church, thank God. That's also how I know like God was prepping me as these moments were going on. I just didn't realize it. So by the time August, September comes, I'm fully convicted. I am fully convicted. Like there's just every Sunday, something is just like happening to me where I'm just feeling like I need to know more. And Miss Tamise from P30, shout out to her. We met shortly before my dinner in April, and she had told me to read the book of James. And I didn't read it until like June maybe. But literally not the first verse, but the second verse of James says, count it all joy to go through trials and tribulations of any kind, for we know that the testing of our faith leads to perseverance. And that one verse changed my life. The whole book of James is amazing, but that one verse changed my life. And it made me think differently about problems in general. You know what I'm saying? It made me feel in an odd way grateful that I was experiencing, as traumatic as it was. It made me grateful to be because I was just like, God sees me. You know what I'm saying? God sees me. And as the growing up in church, the understanding of the Bible that I had, we know all these different stories. When you really think about it, all the people that God used to do his work went through extreme situations. Even Jesus Christ himself.
Right.
And I remember talking to a friend of mine one day, and I was just like, man, could you imagine? Like, we need to be grateful that these little problems we got are just the problems that we have. Because could you imagine committing a sin or going through an issue and you wake up tomorrow in the belly of a whale? Or you wake up tomorrow in a fiery furnace? We get upset when it gets past 80 degrees outside. You know what I'm saying? Waking up in a furnace is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Could you imagine waking up and having to literally carry a cross on your back and then get up on that cross and get nailed through your hands? A lot of us don't even like going to the doctors and getting a shot. So could you imagine if that's what you had to deal with for the problems you're facing in your life? So that started to, and I'm still a human. So yes, I still feel pain and I feel all of those things. But when you look at the perspective of, and I say this all the time, that I think a lot of people are not believers and don't believe in the Bible because the context of history that it is in is untouchable for us. The history that we know in terms of like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Abraham Lincoln, whatever the case may be, we can touch it in a way. We have artifacts, we have descendants, that can tell those stories to us still. We don't really have that in the context of the Bible. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's why a lot of people don't believe, truthfully. But when I think about it in those ways, it made me feel like, thank God this is just the only thing that I'm dealing with. Even going through unemployment, when I would go to those classes and look and see, I know the struggle I'm having, but I'm a single person. I don't have a man. I don't have kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have extreme bills, anything like that. And I'm surrounded by people who have multiple children, who do have families, who might have a sick parent they're taking care of. And unemployment is not a lot. And I was making the highest amount that you could get. You know what I'm saying? I was getting the highest amount that you could get from unemployment. And I remember going to apply for food stamps and literally had to go through all this back and forth. And that's the other problem. And this is something, I don't know, later in life, maybe I'll be called to address it. But the government systems that are supposed to take care of people make you feel so like a complete worthless human being. And I know we've seen it a lot, like in the prison systems and stuff like that, but a lot of these government aids, which we pay for, so you're entitled to it, when you need it. And don't get me wrong, I know there are scammers and stuff like that who manipulate the system, but everybody is not that. So you should not always treat everybody like that. You know what I'm saying? But I remember going through all this stuff. They told me I was qualified. I think at the time they told me I was going to get like $97 a month for food stamps. It was crazy. But I knew, I was like, I live with my sister. I got family. Like, I'm going to be okay regardless. I was not worried about it. But then they get back and tell me I was denied because I make $7 over the household income limit.
Wow.
It was I think it was $17. $17 over the household limit to qualify for food stamps. And this is off of unemployment that I think literally every week after taxes, I was getting $335 a week, which that might sound like a lot, but at the end of the month, I'm barely making enough to cover my rent. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I'm barely making enough to cover my rent, let alone I have to put rent, utilities, gas in my car, pay my phone bill, car insurance, still eat every day, all these different things. And you're telling me I make $17 over it. So I'm just like, there was a point where I'm like, okay, God, what do you want me to do? But I remember I was like, I went through all this hassle of trying to apply for food stamps that I was like, file for unemployment. That I was like, I'm not going to apply for food stamps. Like, we can eat. We're good. We're fine. And I had let the paperwork just sit. And one day something was just like, at least go read the paperwork. And so when you file for food stamps, you also technically are filing for Medicaid as well. And that I was interested in because I don't need to go to the doctor like that, but just in case, you know what I'm saying? Medicaid is top tier, okay? Top tier. But I was reading the paperwork, and this is like 2 o'clock in the morning one night, and I just could not go to sleep. And I was like, let me just read this paperwork. And I'm reading, and it's basically like any health needs that you need, anything, basically free. And I was like, this cannot be right. Like, y'all just made me go through. Y'all wouldn't give me food, but I can go clear a bill on these doctors? That don't even make sense to me. So I called my mom the next morning. I said, please read this and tell me I'm reading this right. And she was just like, yeah. So I was like, wait, does that mean I can go to therapy? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, when I say I made 5 doctor's appointments, I said, I'm going to call you back. I made 5 doctor's appointments that day. I was not playing around. But that's why I always say that it's been a blessing and a curse to be unemployed, because had I not, I won't say I wouldn't have ever gone to therapy, but it probably would not have been now. And now is when I needed it the most, literally the most. And I started therapy earlier in the summer, and it has changed my life. And it's crazy because she was like, I feel like you're just moving through this so fast. And I was like, I told you day one, I know what my problems are. I just need someone to help me understand and navigate them from a healthy place. You know what I'm saying? I knew what my problems were. I knew where they stem from. And there were some things that I didn't know that came up in those things, like my need to control, my desire to fix people, that good that I want to see in people. You can't force that on people. People have to want that for themselves. And then if you can guide them, you can show them the way, you can live as an example, but you can't make anybody do anything that they don't want to do. And that's literally every relationship around me, what I was doing. And that's when I was just like, okay. Then it clicked in that like, okay, God has made, I literally heard again, you have to shed. And I was like, shed, what does that mean? And then I thought about it. I was like, everything that brought me some sort of peace, joy, happiness, stability, whatever, was literally disappearing from my life. My job, my finances, my identity, my self-worth, my friendships, like everything was being shed away from me. And then I started seeing all these posts on Instagram that were just like, you know, basically talking about shedding and how you have to let go of the old to be introduced to the new. And I was just like, oh, that's what's happening. That's what's going on right now. And again, this is all this, I don't know if all this sounds all over the place, but it was just like so many things happening. But the biggest thing was just my awareness that it was happening. Because a lot of the times, that's why they say you will go through the same thing over and over and over again until you can clock in to what's actually happening to you, accept it, learn from it, and move on and proceed from it. So that's when I was just like, okay, I can't put so much effort and energy into the world because the world is not giving me that same effort and energy back, and I'm the one that's suffering. I'm like, literally, there are like days where I'm on the floor crying, where I'm in the shower crying, I'm on my couch crying. You know what I'm saying? I can't get out of the bed. I haven't eaten in days. I haven't showered in days. And I can list on literally 3 fingers who was checking on me every single day. And that was really a wake-up call for me. You know what I'm saying? Who is adding to my stress and my depression and not helping me out of it. And it's hard. Like, I am a non-confrontational person. I hate discord. I literally, it makes me cringe. It makes me want to throw up, literally. But I was like, Marquice, you have to do this for yourself. And thank God for my therapist, like, pushing me, like, every week should be like, so did you do this? Did you talk to that person? Did you let this go? Like, blah, 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 blah. And I just had to be more comfortable with taking up space for myself and knowing that it's okay. Like, whatever is for you is going to be for you, and that is okay. And once I accepted that and started letting go, like, now I tell people, like, when people ask me, like, how are you? I'm like, I'm actually, like, I honestly, for the first time in my life ever, I feel like I am so good. Like, things are not perfect. They're not great. I still have some, struggles and things. But the outlook of what is to come is so much different. Like, sitting right here, the end of the year, this being the end of the year is so crazy. Like, knowing that what it looked like because literally 365 days last week. So around like the December 15th area, a year ago from that date today was the catapult of all of this. And I never thought I would see the end of it. And yes, I'm not at the end of it all completely. I'm not out of it, but I can see the light. I thought that was it. Like, I remember telling my mom, I said, you know what, all else fails, I'll just move to Mexico, be a fruit peddler on the street. Like, like, I can make life happen for me somewhere else. Like, maybe India's not the place for, like, just all these different things. I was looking for a way to escape. But it was like, you cannot escape because the same problems will still exist.
Yeah.
And if you have the same problems, a lot of us don't want to see the issue that's within ourselves. And it doesn't always mean that you're a horrible person or that you're the worst person, but we all have some things that are, like I said, the wanting to control things, the wanting to fix things, like just wanting to always have a plan. And I'm an event planner, so that's literally what I do for a living. Yeah. So not having a plan is very difficult for me, but I have learned to really just live and be in the flow. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have an idea. I don't have a plan. I have an idea. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think your whole story is a message of resilience and just the fortitude of not giving up. Because so many different times you could have just said, you know what, I'm just not even going to try. And that's quite often what a lot of people do. And
I did at one point.
And we'll get there. And even the point about being within functional depression, which a lot of people don't understand, but that's in the place, in the space to where you know that you have responsibilities that you have to show for. And I think more so is you not wanting to let other people down. And the thought of letting other people down will cause you to get up. But when it comes to yourself and the stuff that you need to do for yourself, you just let it pass you by.
Absolutely. And that really changed my perspective on everything. And that's why I said, just going back thinking about how God was already putting pieces in place for me to be able to survive. You know what I'm saying? Just to the point of me and my sister living together. I'm like, if nothing else, I have to do this for her. You know what I'm saying? Because there might come a point where she has to take care. And in a lot of ways she did. You know what I'm saying? She financially, she never really had to take over the bills or anything, but just like I said, spending all day crying, you know what I'm saying, crying, so sad, and I would get so excited knowing that 5 o'clock was coming and my sister was gonna be home and she was gonna make me laugh and smile and all these different things. So knowing that I had events coming up that I have to do these things, even just in my business, the whole time I've had my business, I've been working a job, you know what I'm saying? And I remember my therapist asking me about my business one day, and several people had asked me oh, so you're gonna be a full-time entrepreneur? And I was like, I don't think I've got that message yet, because also when we think about God speaking to us, what that looks like, what that sounds like, we're looking for something very specific, and a lot of the times we just don't realize it. And so I didn't hear specifically, yes, you're about to work for yourself, you know what I'm saying? But when my therapist said it, I listened to her, and she was just like, well, every time we talk, you talking about some booking or some engagement you got coming up. And I was like, you know what, you're right. And then I had literally up until October, maybe, I never had to touch my business account to do anything for my life. I didn't. But I had been building that account for 3.5 years at that point. And so even that, knowing that type of, so it's been good. This has been happening for a long time. I just didn't realize it. So when I say God's protection and covering is insane, it's crazy. You know what I'm saying? It's really, really crazy. So knowing that and I remember one day I was just I'm tired of crying. I'm tired of crying. I'm tired of being sad. That's not who I am. You know what I'm saying? I remember I was so sad, and this sounds so crazy to say. I remember I was watching Bad Girls Club every day because I was like, at least watching someone else's drama is entertaining than living in my own. Like, that's crazy. But I remember one day I was like, Marquice, you cannot just lay here every day and wallow away. Like, that is not you.
It gets to that point. You have that wake up call, and sometimes it's an internal thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, are you really doing this? Are you really just going to sit here and let your life pass you by?
Yeah. I was embarrassed.
It is quite embarrassing, and it's scary to even bring that up to people.
Absolutely.
So it's like, when you have that internal conflict, because that part of you that's in there, it's like, well, you don't deserve this, you don't deserve that, you don't need to do anything, you're not good enough to do anything, you don't have this, you don't have this, you don't have this.
Yeah.
When that voice is so loud that it almost silences the voice that is telling you that what you are.
Yeah.
That's where you're in those places to where you're just sitting on the edge of your bed crying.
Literally.
And nobody really likes to be there.
Exactly.
But it comes to a point to where that other voice, you finally start to hear it. And it finally reminds you of who you are. And it finally reminds you of the value that you have.
Yeah.
And it finally reminds you that you are somebody.
Yes.
So it's like, since I know that I'm somebody, I know I have value, I got to get up.
Yes.
And you on the other side, this voice over here, you got to shut up. Because I'm not about to listen to you no more.
Absolutely.
Because you're taking my life.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to be a dead man walking. Because it happens. And nobody wants to be a dead man walking.
Oh my gosh, Tyrus, I told you to be speaking some stuff, okay? But that is so real. Like,
and people will notice it too. They'll see the life that you used to have not there anymore.
Yeah.
And people will remind you. And you'll try to find every excuse in the book. Ask, oh no, I'm just tired. Oh no, I was just doing this,
Literally.
and this. And the whole time they right.
Yeah.
And the whole time you are sad.
Exactly.
And you are depressed.
Exactly.
And you don't want to talk to nobody. And you don't want to see nobody. But here you are.
Literally.
Smiling in the face.
Literally.
But people can tell when the smile is fake versus when it's real.
And I literally got to a point where I couldn't even smile anymore.
You can't keep it up. You can't act forever.
I could not smile anymore. And that's why a part of me being so transparent. And I had to tell myself this too. I was like, Marquice, you started your platform on the basis of being transparent because there aren't a lot of people really showing how to navigate young adulthood, whatever the case may be. That's why you started this. So this is also a part of the story and the journey that somebody needs to hear. And you know what, Tyrus? As soon as that came out of my mouth, I started connecting with so many people who were literally having the exact or similar experiences to me. And it started changing the path of my life.
And I think we get out of those, we'll put ourselves in a position to where we think that we have to be perfect as leaders. But leaders don't have to be perfect.
Yes.
They just have to be real.
Yes.
And what makes a good leader is not somebody who puts themselves in front of people as if they have no flaws.
Absolutely.
And as if they don't go through anything.
Absolutely.
But a good leader is somebody that you can relate to.
Yes.
And that you can look eye to eye and say, since you've been through this, help me get out of this.
Exactly.
And sometimes I always like to think of the story of Moses, how he was not only leading the people out of Israel, but he was also leading himself too. So it's like, as a leader, you may be leading yourself out of something that you are also experiencing.
Yes.
And I think I took a picture, but I read in the book just yesterday, or it was on Christmas. Where is it at? Now it don't want to come up. But basically, it was a beautiful point to. Oh, I found it. So it says, so you're giving me advice, are you? You say, have you already given yourself advice then? Have you already put yourself straight? Is that how you come to have time to reforming other people? And the person said, no, I'm not shameless as to set about treating people when I'm sick myself. I'm talking to you as if I am laying in the same hospital ward about the illness we are both suffering from and passing on some remedies. So it's like sometimes it's not about someone being on the outside, looking inside and talking to people inside and saying, hey, you guys need to do this to get it together. But it could be just me sitting right next to you, sharing experience and saying, I understand what you're going through because I'm going through it too. And these are the things that have helped me up until this point. And though I still may experience some hardships and some times where I feel like giving up. I've learned when I felt like giving up before, this has helped me, and maybe it will help you.
Yeah.
And that's the power of perspective. That's the power of conversation.
Yes.
That's the power of vulnerability and understanding and accepting that we all go through things.
Yeah.
And we all need each other to be vulnerable, because if we're not vulnerable with each other, we'll eat ourselves alive, because we'll think that something is truly wrong with us.
Absolutely.
Instead of just accepting that it's just a human experience.
Exactly.
And it is just the human experience.
That's it. We all have problems, and we're all going to face difficulties. And that's why I don't understand why. Now, I'm not saying everybody just needs to be out here blasting and airing all their business or whatever. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that we need to be more accepting of our trials and tribulations and not trying to hide, behind whatever. You know what I'm saying? Because one, not only does it help somebody else, it also frees you.
Frees you at the same time.
It frees you. And I'm like, I've never had a problem with talking about my life experiences. I might not just be forthright, come out, blurt it out to you, but if you ask me a question about it, I would tell you. You know what I'm saying? I have no issue with that, because one, yes, it is a part of my life, but it doesn't define who I am. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, yes, this was a part in my life, but it's just a part in my life. That's it. And I'm just like, we look at different celebrities and we get so inspired by their struggles. And it's so funny. I swear, I remember. This is before I even started G4 back in 2020. And I remember being in the living room with my mom. And I remember saying, like, I don't know if I'm going to be, like, somebody important. She was like, why? And I said, because I don't have a struggle story.
I've gotten through,
have a struggle
like,
story.
even growing up in church, hearing all these testimonies and people talk about where they've been. And then, I was out in the streets doing this, and this.
Yeah.
And I used to talk to my siblings. I'd be like, man, we ain't got nothing to say like that.
Right. But it also brought me to, like, how do people in the church say, just keep on living?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just keep on living.
And not just that. I remember one time someone got up during testimony service and they just basically saying the same thing, but their testimony was they're so thankful that God kept them. So I was like,
yes,
that is a testimony.
Yes.
He kept me.
Yes.
And I was not blind to the hardships that were happening around me. And as an empath, I felt some of that myself.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm so grateful and glad that he kept me.
Yes.
Even when I thought that it wasn't anything happening.
Yeah. And
even when you're looking at everyone else and this person is talking about the hardest thing ever, and you're like, man, that sounds like something that's hard. And I haven't experienced it, but I'm grateful that he kept me. Yeah. Because that's enough.
Yeah. And it's also, and because this is something I struggled with growing up, is not having a struggle. Like, I would feel ashamed about, talking about that I come from a 2-parent household, or that I live in a house, or what, that I'm in honors classes, or that, I do play. I was always afraid to talk about the positive things about myself, because that wasn't the reality of so many people around me. But I'm like, that's a blessing within itself that can help someone. Because again, like I said at the beginning, of being an example of what is possible. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes what is possible, you're going to have to, it's not going to be given to you. It's not going to be shown to you. You're going to have to fight very hard to find it. You know what I'm saying? You're going to fight hard, but it is still possible. It is still something that you can have and that you can obtain. But then when you do go through a struggle, like you said, remembering that one, you it's not like you haven't struggled before. Yeah. You just might not have struggled to this level.
There are levels to it, for sure.
There's levels to struggle. And that's why I'm like, it's a beauty and a curse in this struggle that I faced this year, because this is the highest struggle I've ever faced. But knowing that there's more struggles that will come makes me a little bit nervous, because I'm like, man, this almost took me out.
You know but with levels, we gain strength. And if you ever played a game and you be the first level, it could have been a little easy, right? Yeah. And the levels get harder as you go. Yeah. But not only do the levels get harder, but you gain more strengths.
That is so. I just started playing Mario. In my
exactly.
Head. Ooh,
and
that was good.
Not only gain more strengths, you just get better at playing the game in general.
Oh, come on, you get better at playing the game.
And if you want to win the game, you don't have to beat those levels. Yes. You don't have to beat the final boss or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And it may get harder. Oh my God. But you'll get stronger. You'll get better. Wiser. You'll become more efficient. You'll become wiser. Yes. The challenges will come.
Yes.
But that's not to say you won't get stronger.
Oh my gosh.
And in the end, you shall win.
Yes.
How do you beat the game? You keep playing until you win.
And what's that? A Johnny, he or she that wins the struggle.
You better win that struggle.
God.
And that's not, there's going to be some struggle. What's that scripture in James?
That's what I'm trying to figure. Oh, no, because it's another scripture. It's like, for all your days, you shall face troubles or something here on earth. It's some scripture like that in the Bible. But, dang, now I'm blanking off the top of my head. Oh, my gosh. Count it all joy. That's why I always start. Count it all joy. That sometimes I just say that. Count it all joy.
Yeah.
Because to say joy and trouble in the same sentence is insane to some people.
Kind of sounds paradoxical.
It does. But count it all joy to go through trials and tribulations of any kind. Yeah. Not just a financial struggle, not just a physical struggle, not just a mental struggle, like of any kind, because we know the testing of our faith. That's the other thing. When you're going through something, it's not for no reason. For the testing of our faith leads to perseverance. So that verse, literally, I'm not a big I do have a few tattoos, but I'm not a big tattoo person. But if I was like that, that is something that I would literally have tattooed in various ways all over me as a reminder. Literally my word for 2025 is joy, because I also saw something where it was just like, people talk about happiness, but happiness is fleeting. Yeah. Joy is eternal. And so when you think about that, what brings me joy? What brings me joy? Literally the song Joy to the World. It didn't say happiness to the world. It said joy to the world. You know what I'm saying? So knowing that you are going through something for a reason, for a purpose, and knowing that our whole purpose in life is not to serve ourselves, but to serve all men. You know what I'm saying? So yes, you're going through something, but it's going to be something that not only empowers you, but empowers the world. And going back to your point of value, that's where the value is. That's where the value is. And when people see and understand that, I believe we would have such a happier world, a more joyful world, when people understand that we are all here. We are all spiritual beings here on earth having a human experience. We're going to have issues. We're going to have troubles. And there's a difference between troubles and drama. If you are in drama, you are experiencing something totally different, okay? Because I had a little bit of drama, but that's where I had to take self-accountability, right. Okay? But then once I got outside of the drama, I was having troubles. And my troubles was tied to my faith. You know what I'm saying? My faith journey with God. And I had to be removed from all of these things to get closer to him in a real way. I've started reading the Bible. So the Bible is like a Harry Potter book to me. I done picked it up, put it down so many times. We're just getting past that first couple of pages. But now I am almost a 10th of the way through the Bible. And that sounds very small.
No, congratulations.
Thank you. But not only am I a 10th of the way through, I'm also understanding. You know what I'm saying? And every book that I've read, again, God has told me which book to read. And every book has been parallel to my experience, starting with the book of James. Then I went to Proverbs.
I always tell people the Bible is a great self-help book if you're looking for one.
Oh, my gosh. Literally.
And a lot of the self-help books take a lot of stuff from the Bible.
Literally.
So. And
I'm just like, I just finished Exodus, which Exodus was very, very powerful. And of course, we know what Exodus means. It means exiting, they're moving out of a place or whatever. But towards the end of that book, one of the things God said was, he was sending these people, he was telling him to do all these things. You know what I'm saying? Like, build this tabernacle, lead these people, do. He was telling him to do all these things, and he was telling them how to do it. But then he followed up with, I'm also going to send you these people who I've blessed with the skills and the talents to be. And as a business owner, that really struck me. But just in life, we always want to say, oh, I don't need nobody, da-da-da-da-da. Yes, nice. You do. You know what I'm saying? That's literally why there are millions and billions of us on the planet. You know what I'm saying? Because we all need each other in some way, shape, or form for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? But that also should give you the confidence and the peace to know that, yes, because they always say heavy is the head. Yes, heavy is the head, but other people's heads are heavy as well because they have to come in and help you as well. Going, again, back to the value piece. we want to put our value in being at the top, being number one, doing this, doing that. But there are so many people that make up one, machine, one thing or whatever. And people don't see, like I said, I have value as a leader, but I also have value as a servant. And I'm okay in both spaces because my value is still the same. I still am important. I still, am who I am.
Right.
And a lot of people let that detract from them. So this year has been, like I said, the lowest of the lows, but it's also been the highest of the highs. And I am very, very grateful and appreciative. I'm extremely excited to see what 2025, like I already know what's on the horizon, but I'm excited to see how they all play out. But my prayer every day now is, God, that as I'm coming out of this season, never let me forget who you are. Never let me forget what you have done and where you have brought me from. And that you are at the center of every conversation that I have, no matter what I'm doing, that you are getting the glory for all of the things. Because literally, without him and my mama, I would not be here. I literally would not be here. I can thankfully say that was the one thing I did not get close to was suicidal ideation. Amen. But I understood it.
Right.
But I was grateful that I felt the reason to live, because there is so much value in living. You know what I'm saying? We were put here to live. When it's your time, but don't end your time. You know what I'm saying? Because you were put here for a reason and a purpose. And if you end your time before God says so, you have disappointed him. Mm-hmm. You have stopped his plan. You know what I'm saying? And that's a disgrace to him. So I pray for everybody all the time. I pray for everybody around me, because I know a lot of things, but I also know there's probably a lot of things that I don't know. And I hope and pray that the people around me feel comfortable sharing those things, if at least with nobody else with me, because it is hard to carry all these things alone. And like I said, once I did start speaking more on it, I felt more free. And the one thing that you always want to be able, I saw an interview with Kerry Washington, and she was talking about how she found out in her adult life that her father wasn't her real father. And they wrote a family book about it. And she said, I wanted to do that because I wanted to own my own narrative. And that is so important, that we own our own narratives. If you just try to hide and then the secret drops, somebody get mad, and now they telling all your business or whatever, now you have no control of that narrative. But if you own the good, the bad, the indifferent, again, I'm not saying go air out all your dirty laundry, but if you can face the things and own it head on, can't nobody tell you about you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that happened. I know. I said it. I did it. You know what I'm saying? I know. You know what I'm saying? So, because I'm not a perfect person. I've made some horrible mistakes. I have hurt people in a very deep way. You know what I'm saying? And I know that. But I have taken accountability for it. I have owned up to it again and again and again. And I pray for forgiveness. But if nothing else, I know God has forgiven me and blessed me. I forgive me and bless me. And that's it. That's it. End of story. Nothing else to talk about. That's it. That's all.
That was good. That was a very vulnerable journey on the lowest moment for Marquice and how you were able to transcend.
Yeah.
I thank you for coming to share that journey for sure.
Thank you for
I hope that people are blessed from this conversation and listening.
So too.
I hope that you feel as if you were listened to and you were heard.
I do.
And I thank you for not giving up.
Thank you.
Because your life does have value. And you do make people's lives better. So I pray that you continue on that journey of making people's lives better. And that when you do think about giving up, or those moments do get hard, come back to this. Come back to this.
Thank you.
Because your life does have value.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Journey Up podcast. I'm your host, Tyrus Duncan. You guys stay blessed. Peace.